You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 374, and my name is Clark from 5cardguys.com. You can also find me at 5cardguys, all spelled out, all one word, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Co-hosting with me is Hyung, who is at Cho Hyung, and you can also find him on IG and YouTube as well. All right, off the top, I think this is the right step by PSA in the name of transparency, and that is that they provided a tracker online in regards to their card backlog. And we talked about this last week, and since that time, it turns out the 12.5 million card backlog number was incorrect, as the number of submissions leading up to the self-imposed deadline turned out to be more than 15 million. All right, so we underestimated. And as of this recording, if you look on their tracker online, they're currently sitting at 14 million with plans to reopen the value tier once they get that backlog number to under 5 million. So I'll include the link to the tracker in the show notes, but Hyung, on their backlog page, what I find more interesting than the actual tracker itself is that PSA cited some numbers, and I want to get your general thoughts on where we are as a hobby, and again, ask what you think of the hobby long term. All right, so let me read the quote for you first. It says on their website, quote, "According to third-party research, more than 9 million active card collectors have joined the community since 2023, bringing the total to approximately 30 million collectors just in the United States. There are also more cards to collect than ever before. In 2025 alone, the Pokemon Company printed 10 billion cards. More collectors and more cards led to an unprecedented number of submissions." End quote. Now, of course, this is PSA trying to cover their butts, but what I rather discuss is this unprecedented growth in the hobby. And, you know, we've talked about this on the pod before. We're generally bullish on the hobby, but is there any concern at all from you, Hyung, that this could be a bubble because of just the tremendous growth that we've seen just in the past year alone?
Of course, that's kind of like everybody's concern. They compare it to, oh, they're printing too much. But the main difference between the junk wax era and now is our form of communication. And that totally changes how we used to do things and why something like that wouldn't sustain without the technology we have today, right? So, for instance, perfect example is back in the, junk wax era, you really couldn't liquidate a card unless, somebody ripped you off in the neighborhood, for whatever reason, you know what I mean? You make your trades or whatever, but you don't really know value. You don't really know what a good deal is unless you're attending these local card shows, whatever, once a month or twice a month, whatever they were, right? So you fast forward to now and you look at the way the hobby has developed and evolved is totally different because you're using, different tools in society that allows you to, liquidate, allows you to make trades within minutes, within seconds. And this is what we're talking about. You can't compare the two where it's just a bubble. Now, with that said, is there a lot of inflated numbers and values associated with a lot of these cards? Absolutely. A lot of these sales are unrealistic. But it goes back to any fundamental principle of investment, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in a business, whatever it is, whether it's art, there has to be certain fundamentals that follow. And, I was talking to a buddy of mine about this, and it goes both ways. There's a lot of inflated, overvalued cards, but I still believe in a growing marketplace like what we're seeing. There's a lot of undervalued cards, even though they are record sales. Right. So we're in a weird area of growth where you can't necessarily just say, oh, we're in a bubble without context because yes, it trends, and it seems as though, a lot of these things can't sustain, which is true. Like that's not false, but I believe as a whole, there's enough foundation now, enough technology, enough communication tools to, grow this hobby. That's what we're seeing. And, and it's always weird because when you're in an industry growth stage, we act like we've been, in many industry growths, but like the hobby in particular is different because we've seen it evolve from, pre-COVID, to where it was a hobby to kind of like a massive marketplace where, the rules have changed immensely and we don't know what they are yet. So we're in this weird stage of kind of like anything goes. PSA's pushing their limits of what, what they can do in the hobby. So it's a very interesting stage.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up a lot of those points, and it just is too simplistic to say it's another bubble. And to your point, like if you zoom in on the time before COVID, and then we see that Eiffel Tower growth and then coming back down, obviously crazy times during COVID. But if you zoom out and even now to where we are, 2026, the Eiffel Tower chart doesn't look that big because we've seen some cards just exceed those values even then. And people could argue like, oh, now we're in another highly inflated period, and it will come down. There'll definitely be some kind of regression, but the general trend is that the floor is higher and higher. And so I think over time, in 10, 20, 30, 50 years, when you zoom out even more, you're going to just see the steady kind of upward trajectory.
And you got to remember too, our dollar is tanking as well. So if you see over year after year in terms of what our dollar's worth, obviously inflation is crazy. So you're seeing a combination of a massive hobby, and essentially what our data is trading against the dollar, right? Because when people cash out, we see sales, it's against the dollar, but over a long period of time, the dollar is tanking. So of course you're going to see an upward trend in general, right? In the long term. Plus, you take it in the enhancement of, the actual growth of the hobby, right? So like I said, trading against the dollar, of course, people are putting it into a Otani slab rather than holding that, $50,000 cash because, they understand that the market is hot. So more people are willing to do that. And that's what, creates the economic activity that surrounds our hobby.
I'll go as far as saying people are taking some money out of crypto. Like we've seen crypto kind of start to decline, and they're putting into alternative assets like trading cards, like other collectibles. So maybe there's some correlation there. But
100%. But that it goes back from market to market. Then the crypto that doesn't have fundamental gets exposed first, right? So that's where you see the ebbs and flows. But obviously, if there's good crypto that you truly believe in, it might not be, smart to do that. But like I said, there's so much from A to Z, good and bad, and same with cards. There's a lot of good and bad within cards. It's like some actually don't have value and some actually do have value. It's a matter of, being able to identify that. One, are you aware that that's a thing? And two, your actions actually, proceed with that thought, pattern.
Yeah. And I'll say this one more thing. What I like and why I'm so bullish on the hobby is that we just don't have flippers like during past bubbles, historic bubbles, where people are just trading like left, right, and center. But we also have like an industry growing where we're actually seeing corporations and companies building things, PSAs, like them or not, they're trying to improve their processes and systems, right? Fanatics, like them or not, they're always trying to innovate and create more on top of what we have already in the hobby. Right. So that's bullish signals for me that there's actually industry being created and being built on, and that the fact that we're able to talk about all these things week after week on a podcast, even content creators, like there's so much to talk about because there's so many things going on in the hobby right now.
100%. And that's so true because we don't know what's in play next week. And that could totally change the direction of even people, their habits in collecting, right? We don't understand. You look at, place, I bring Arena Club up so much just because I had a great experience with Arena Club. They totally changed the way you rip. But, before that, you didn't have, new experiences or new whatever it is that pertains to the hobby. And that's what you're seeing in influx right now is there's so much opportunity that things change on a daily basis, and why we're able to even, talk about it because, there, like I said, within a growth marketplace where it's a massive, massive shift, we're talking a new era of, collectible. I don't even know what to call it anymore. That's why I don't even want to call it a hobby, because it's really not a hobby. It's the collectible and tradable space, that people value as art almost, right? So, new industry. There's really no boundaries right now, and the only limitation is what your own personal mind can handle, right? So, and that's why we always say it. It's like if you see the hobby that way, that's exactly what you'll get out of the hobby, right? So it's important to kind of, be open-minded to things and kind of say, what, I used to do. And even the old school heads, it's like, yeah, I used to do it this way, or this is the way it used to be. But that doesn't mean that it's going to work in the same, world we live in today. So it's kind of being open-minded to, seeing the potential of what actually is out there and kind of going with the flow almost. You can't really, even from a business standpoint, we talked about if we had committed to, let's just say, a business venture a year or 2 years ago, that might not even be in play today, right? Because, so much has evolved and, and I think that's so important to really understand and aware that this is a real thing in our hobby, in our marketplace. It's not some fictional thing. It's like, that's the basis of what our business or what this whole marketplace is predicated on.
Yeah, well said. And I think it's perfectly encapsulated by the title of our podcast, Carts to the Moon. We just on this rocket ship and we're just enjoying the ride, right?
Yeah.
You enjoy the ride, you'll have a good time. And
it's funny, Clark, because you realize that the Carts to the Moon actually means more now than when you originally
right.
created the title for it. It means more because it actually, you actually see the result through that, right? Where it's like, whoa, we didn't realize that like it's going to be like this. Well, we kind of knew, but we're living it, right? So it's kind of interesting viewpoint to see it from that standpoint.
Absolutely. And actually, that's a great segue to our next segment. We'll move on to hobby headlines. And, like I said, this breaking is what we're going to talk about more or less, but that's a whole industry in itself, like a sub niche within the industry that's just blowing up. And it's too bad John couldn't make it today because we all know he feels a particular way about breakers. So it would have been great to get his input on our topic today. But I'm basing a lot of the discussion points from an article in The Athletic, which was published recently, and it was titled $100 million revenues for sports card sellers inside the race to own the live selling market. And so as we've done in the past, I'll go through some of the key quotes and the notes from the article and we can discuss our thoughts on them. All right. But the general gist of the article is that the growth in revenue generated from these live selling platforms, such as Whatnot, Fanatics Live, and now eBay Live, they continue to grow quickly. And so the question really is whether this will become the predominant way in which collectors will begin to buy and sell their cards. But let's start with the numbers. First, the article says, quote, social commerce in the United States grew an estimated 21.5% year over year to more than $87 billion in 2025, according to research firm eMarketer. And trading cards and other collectibles comprise a significant piece of that total. And then later in the article, it estimates it will cross the $100 billion threshold in 2026. So are you surprised at these gigantic numbers?
Surprised, but not surprised.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It's kind of like surreal that it's happening, but that's how big the marketplace is. And it goes back to when we discuss, why would eBay get involved? Why would PSA get involved? They're not getting involved to make mom and pop revenue. You know what I mean? They're getting involved because they actually see the opportunity, and they take it there. And that's what bigger companies that have leverage, they're able to do really easily if they, own, a particular market, or a particular niche within the marketplace, right? So that's what, these guys are doing. And I'm not surprised because, like I said, they're in it, one, to make money. Let's be real. And,
Sure.
and we have to understand that this whole thing runs on, value and money. And, the reason why the big dogs or the pillars who move this whole business space is doing it, right? And they're there to make money, but they're also there to solve problems and make the space better. And that's the framework that these big, companies, look at it as, because that's the only way to create, one, sustainable revenue, and two, be able to control the narrative of how the marketplace should or wherever go, right? So I'm not surprised, but like by any of this, and and then it trickles down. Then the people that buy into that, they see the vision, they're going to carry out their business strategy. So if you're a breaker, you're going to piggyback on that, because if that industry grows, that means your business is growing, right? So, and like I said, within that context, there's great people and there's bad people, right? Sure. You can't control whether there's great people or bad people, but that's what you get. And with that type of money, you see the horror stories that come with it. And I think that's the way people frame it. They see the bad experiences. So don't necessarily judge the system at scale, judge the people that take advantage of that. And obviously with that becomes an improvement, because when you create something like that, then it's like, okay, what went wrong and what didn't? What went well? And then it's like, okay, how do we avoid the what went wrong, right? And that's the evolution of that growth.
Yeah. And like you're saying, that's all part of the growth process, right? And I agree with you. It's, when you say that these larger corporations, they see literally billions of dollars that they can make. And that's why they're jumping in very eagerly. And that's just kind of how the world goes right now. But yeah, I wanted to touch upon the point you just mentioned about taking the good with the bad and the bad with the good. And we got to kind of navigate the situation together while we're kind of experiencing this all together, this tremendous growth all together. And I saved this question for later, but I think it's good to address it now. In which the article, it says, in the collectible space, we know that Whatnot is the leader now, but they're, of course, not without controversy. Like you were kind of alluding to, they have shady breakers out there. You had that whole backyard breaks incident, which the article actually calls out. They write about Grant Telford, who was temporarily suspended for saying an inappropriate remark about a minor. But here's a statement from Whatnot about what they're doing to improve the safety of the platform. And they said, quote, "As the platform has expanded, so has our enforcement. Today, 1 in 3 employees focuses on buyer and seller trust. Our scale works in our favor. More buyers generate more reviews, reports, and detection signals we use to improve our systems. We proactively ban tens of thousands of accounts every week, and the average seller rating on Whatnot is 4.91 out of 5, even as the seller base has grown." End quote. So kind of coming back to how do we navigate this together? The question is, if Whatnot continues to grow as quickly as they have, do you expect to hear more controversies with more shady dealers and breakers out there? Or do you think as an industry, they're able to clamp down even as they grow rapidly? Like, what side do you stand on?
I think both can happen simultaneously, because what happens is, as Whatnot grows that, industry, because, they see the opportunity, they're not going to be the only ones that are going to be wanting to create the next best platform, because like I said, if it's a growing industry, another person is going to come and say, what's Whatnot doing that or what aren't they doing that we should be doing, and what do we believe in? And then there might be technology in play. A company might stumble into a technology that can, push Whatnot in a certain direction, or, as the industry grows, a lot of people are going to coexist. A lot of people are going to chase. And it comes down to value again. It's any company, and this is what I think our general perception is. It's so black and white. It's like one bad incident happens, the whole Whatnot is a fraud. Right. It's like there has to be a business model and sustainability model for it to exist year after year, right? Mm-hmm. So they're not going to jeopardize and rig a system, for instance, or do something, stupid that would jeopardize that long term. There's so many stakeholders involved that it wouldn't happen. So it's like, that's what people don't understand. It's not as black and white as you think. Mm-hmm. So I think that as Whatnot grows, the marketplace grows, the whole space grows, new players evolve, new technology evolves, and that's the cycle that we're going to see. And, Whatnot, I'm glad that they're proactive in doing this because, like I said, there's going to be good and bad. You get all the info as intel. Don't judge whether it's good or bad. And you create the next steps accordingly so that you create more value within that community. And it's that loop, that cycle that, these companies, that's how they view it as, because they want to be around next year. They want to be around the year after. They see the marketplace growing to 500 million or a billion or whatever, market value breaking gets to.
Yeah. I like to point out that we are not sponsored by Whatnot, so this isn't.
I've never used Whatnot before.
There you go. I've used it a couple times, and it's definitely, I see the appeal of it. It's like a lot of comparison with what's happening on these live selling platforms to, you and I are old enough to know those home shopping networks, late night TV, where you could just see those infomercials and pick up the phone, call, live, and then you get it shipped out to you. Comes like a couple weeks or a month later. Shipping times were different back then. Yeah, those infomercials but now, because with technology available, that's everything is lightning fast. Everything happens. I've seen 10-second auctions. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, go. And we're like, oh, should I bid on this? Like 10 seconds? And then they ship it out to you the next day and you get it within a week. Like things are moving so quickly. And I see the appeal of it because of the speed, of the excitement. And we're going to touch on that point later in terms of like who is on Whatnot, who are on these live selling platforms and who are successful in it. But it does go hand in hand with what we are used to seeing back in the 80s, 90s with the hosts were a huge deal of these live home shopping networks, right? But
it's an involvement of that, really, right?
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely, and I think a lot of people are seeing that. But I do want to point out that I know there's going to be some who listen out there, and when you said that Whatnot's being proactive, people are going to push back on that, saying, "Well, they're doing this because they got caught with some shady dealers and they don't want." But but I mean, it was inevitable. I think our point is that it was inevitable when you're growing this quickly. You're going to have bad apples in there trying to take advantage of a system that's early. And, there are not the proper enforcements in place. But it looks like they're doing that now. And again, not sponsored by Whatnot.
Yeah. And that's the accountability I think is fair from a user perspective, is as long as they are addressing the issues as they come up. Because like I said, you can't address every issue before you launch your platform, and then you're trying to cater to every single thing that happens. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's up to us as individuals to, hey, like I said, there's good people out there, there's bad people out there. You're never going to really change that. And you can't. And of course, there's people that, and that's a whole can of worms. We used to have, online police, the police dogs, right? That were corrupt in the first place. Like, I forgot what
remember card porn?
Yeah, card porn, like stuff like that. It's like, then people start trusting, independent companies like that have, you don't know what their agenda is, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen to the hobby for sure. We
Yes.
are addressing them, I think, as it goes and as it evolves. And yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of, I know people might seem like, I'm supporting whatnot. It's like, to be honest, I'm not a customer. I've never used their platform. I don't even have an account. I'll talk highly about Arena Club. I use Arena Club, that I've had great experiences, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm going to reach out to Arena Club. They should be sponsoring this podcast by now.
Yeah, yes.
But,
give us a few packs to rip.
Yeah, we'll take that deal. But no, I agree with you also on, Boston Card Hunter. He always seems to be calling out different whatnot shady breakers out there. And I don't mind that either, because I think as we grow, we need to point who are the bad apples out there. And I think hopefully as this industry grows, there'll be fewer and fewer of those around, because the system is working better. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's here to stay, mainly because the money is there. If it wasn't making any money, guess what? None of these platforms would exist. It wouldn't be worth their while. For
sure. And a good point to make too is, in general, I would say 98%, 99% of my dealings within the hobby have been with amazing people. Yes. And you know what I mean? And yes, we're going to stumble into that 1 or 2%, but really it's the people that make the hobby community safe and, people that stand up. So like you said, people who want to keep the others accountable, by all means, if that's your thing, do that within the hobby. Mm-hmm. For me personally, I have 24 hours within the day. There's no way I'm here to argue with, other people's choices, bad choices or good choices. It's like, I only have 24 hours in the day. I'm going to enjoy the hobby the way I want to enjoy it and not necessarily focus my attention on the bad apples. But like I said, that's what makes our hobby great. There's so much you can do and get yourself involved with, whether it's content creation, whether it's being a watchdog, whether it's, buying and selling, whether it's, creating a podcast, whatever it may be. There's so much that you can do that shouldn't, stop you from enjoying it for what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to add, before I go on to the next point, what I love about the hobby community is that, kind of in a good way too, that we are able to police one another. If there's something bad going on, it's hard to hide from it, because there'll be people that just call you out like crazy. Like you were saying, back in the days when, the Wild West, when we were shipping things through eBay without any kind of authenticity guarantee. Remember those days? You're like, okay, I hope it gets there, but if it doesn't, guess what? That user that's trying to rip off someone, it's gonna get shouted, like they're gonna be all over the web, all over the socials, and then no one's gonna want to do a deal with them. And it's just the hobby. It consists of people who are passionate about card collecting, and that's what makes it more safe, in my opinion, than other industries in a lot of ways. All right, you kind of alluded to this earlier, but they also interviewed Jeff Wilson, aka Sports Card Investor, for the article. He had, Cards HQ, they have a live breaking business, and they're expecting to hit 30 million in sales this year, just from the breaking side of the business. And that's double what they made in 2025, which is about 15 million. So obviously another case in point in breaking is a big money business. But he says, quote, "When customers come into streams, it's very much a talent and personality driven business. When you see these companies that have hundreds of people in their streams and they're doing really big sales, they built that up by creating connections with their audience and putting their talent first," end quote. So do you agree, disagree? And if you agree, is this kind of like high school again, where the popular kids always seem to win?
No, I completely agree. When we extrapolate this point, it's the conversations we've had in the past of how local card stores could do things differently that create revenue streams. And this is exactly what we are talking about. Jeff Wilson hit it on the nail. It's like they're doing things. So think, if he's pushing $30 million in breaks, whatever the margin is, let's just say it's 10%, net profit margin.
Yeah.
That $3 million didn't exist,
right,
before the internet. So this is what we're talking about. And he's right. Then if you're making 3 million, let's just say on profit, do you think Jeff's the only guy that's doing breaks? He's going to invest in whoever is that character, that talent, because he's enjoying it, because he's talented at doing it. But Jeff doesn't have to be the guy, right? So to me, it's a no-brainer. And these are what makes, and like I said, it goes back to the conversation. Do physical locations can they still exist? And this is what my point. Absolutely. Because no longer are hobby shops just a place to buy cards. It becomes a hobby experience from a digital and physical way. So the experience is the most important thing. And that's where we're evolving, not only in the hobby. I see this in multiple businesses, whether you're, Nespresso, your marketing and branding is more than just, going to Walmart and being able to purchase coffee pods. It's, it's the brand, it's the experience. You see it in Aritzia, the girls' store or whatever. They're creating coffee shops.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then you mix that in with the digital infrastructure that we have, the social media, the content creation, influencers. It's a totally different business model than what we're doing. So when Jeff is talking about this in particular, it's exactly what we were referring to when we discussed what hobby shops could do differently.
Yeah, and personality, like whether you like it or not, and I was kind of half joking about it being a popularity contest, but with the, with social media and with influencers rising, there's so many options and choices for you to go to where you want to go. A lot of people, even in content creation space, right? A lot of people listen to our podcast because they just like how we vibe and how we talk about cards. And others like sports card nonsense with Mike and Jesse. They like their vibe together. So it's the same thing with breakers. There's some breakers I just don't enjoy because maybe they're a little too loud. Maybe I'm just too old. Right. Whatever it is. But there's others that is just more calm, and that's my style. But guess what? I like going to them because I can A, maybe better relate to them. B, I trust them because they seem to be doing it more consistently. And so there's a lot of different personalities out there. And, I think you kind of mentioned this, and the article mentions this before too, from a seller who was quoted saying, when the bad things happen, they all get grouped into the same, they're like, all breakers are bad. All breakers are like this. But if you look closely, if you dive deeper, you see that there's a lot of diversity within even the breaking industry.
Clark, I will say there's no way one store does $30 million in sales with bad people running it. Right. Like, seriously, how does that happen? How does that exist? How does that grow from year after year? How? Yeah. Right? It's like people are accountable for people. So if they were that bad in the first place, then people shouldn't be purchasing from them. And it would eventually, end up that way. Right? But you can't say that it's all bad and then you look at the data, you look at the numbers. Well, how is this growth happening then if it's all bad?
Right. And I know Jeff Wilson is a great point, because I know there's a lot of Jeff Wilson haters, or they just don't like his style. And maybe there are people out there who don't like him that are just flabbergasted at these $1 million sales. Like, how can someone like that make that much money? Guess what? The real reality is there are a lot of people that do like Jeff Wilson, and that's why he's making $3 million in profit, whether it is the 10% margin, $30 million in sales total, because there are people that do trust him, that do like him. And, as often is the case, people who have negative things to say or are more critical usually have louder voices, usually get amplified. But there's a lot of people out there that are just quiet and, they do their thing. Like you're saying, everyone has, this breaking news, guys, everyone has 24 hours in a day. There's no one that has more or less than that. And
choose wisely.
You choose wisely on how you want to spend that time. All right. I got a couple more points. And again, you alluded to this earlier, with the growth of this industry, in particular the breaking side of things. they're going to have competitors, right? When different companies can see that they can make money, you're going to have competitors. So the article mentions Filth Bomb Breaks, and they said they're one of the largest breakers on Fanatics Live. All right. But they also recently joined eBay Live. And the article says, quote, in addition to Filth Bomb, eBay has also recently added popular sellers, including Blez Sports Cards, We the Hobby, and Sports Card Nonsense to its live platform in different non-exclusive capacities as it attempts to catch up to Whatnot and Fanatics Live in the space, end quote. Now, I know some of these platforms offer different kinds of perks for your business to stay on their platform, but this is more of a business or strategy type question for you, Hyung. Let's say we at 5 Card Guys and Cards to the Moon wanted to start our own breaking business. Do you think it's better to go all in on one platform and try to maximize the perks, maybe through some kind of exclusive contract, or go multi-platform like the companies I just mentioned, in Mama Breaks as well, she's multi-platform, and stream on Whatnot, Fanatics Live, and eBay Live? What do you think would be your play?
That's a good question. You know what? Like, I have never thought about, streaming or breaking, but
the money's there, Hyung. The money's there.
I mean, the money's there, but like I said, you only have 24 hours in a day. Choose wisely. I would say, particular in our case, because you built the brand pretty well. I would leverage that and do a really good deal with one and get the best benefits, and then go all out on marketing and create like a funnel, right? To be able to reap the benefits on the large platform, like whether it's eBay Live or whatever. Negotiate a deal where it might, benefit, 5 Card Guys better. Whereas, if you went on multiple platforms, you might just be getting kind of like the basic tier, sure, commissions or whatever it is, right? So I think, and that's why the ecosystem is so interesting, because it now becomes work in the digital space, and the infinite scaling possibility in the digital world becomes your bread and butter. And that's all you focus on, because if you create that structure of, let's just say you're converting a certain percentage, and this is why data matters. Let's just say you're converting number of views with actual customers that join your breaking platform. It becomes a matter of, okay, if 100,000, views on my videos are getting me, let's just say, whatever it is, 2%, 1%. Okay. You start thinking, okay, I need to create more content that would funnel people into this stream, right? So that's all it is. And that's what Jeff Wilson's doing. That's what all these guys are doing, is using the media side. So I would do the exact same thing and leverage the number one asset that 5 Card Guys has is, the audience, in terms of, being able to sell them something, right? That's the way I would approach it, not the multi-stream.
That's interesting. And I love this question too, because there's really no right answer, but it's about going with our gut. Because I would have gone the other way, because I think it's still really early in the process in terms of who's going to win, and not even who's going to win. And that's going to kind of segue into the next question, but what will the future of breaking look like? Will it be 1 or 2 predominant players, or will it be 5 or 6? And we're beginning to see a fragmentation of the industry in this particular area already, which I'll get to. But in that sense, I don't know if I want to put all my apples into one basket. We're using apples a lot as a metaphor or analogy, but you know what I mean, like to spread it out. But I also see the argument where if we're a smaller brand, especially compared to the ones I mentioned, maybe it is more efficient to just focus on one and try to extract as much perks as possible. And I think that's the key for me. Depends on the perks. If we're going to go exclusive or really all in on one, what can that platform do for us to kind of support us in the early stages?
And I think that business model, the reason why it goes down to what are the perks, because that's going to be your advantage over everybody else, right?
Yes.
So to me, it's being able to negotiate that early on. But like I said, I know an eBay won't want to negotiate with a smaller brand, for instance. There's a lot, you have to bring value. And that's where, I look at it as I would go all out on content. I would generate millions and millions and millions of views. Go to eBay and say, okay, this is what so-and-so is getting. I want 5% off that. I want 10% off that. I want, whatever it is, I would start negotiating that sense by leveraging the media. But yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of, you could do it any way, really. In terms of whether you do multiple platforms, if you're smaller. I just like doing things like the big step, because I find it's this analogy, Clark. It's like, it's the same thing as cards. When we started, we all sold like $50 cards, $100 cards. Yeah. And then we realized, okay, it's a lot of work. So we start moving up in value, because it's the same amount of work, but a percentage of the profit becomes more, reasonable. And, that's why people do it on the 10,000, 100,000 level, because now you're talking about the scale becomes gigantic, right? And it requires the same amount of time. So when I say these things, I'm taking the same context where it's like, man, if I'm building this from scratch, I want to jump all the way.
But there's, also other risks involved by going that way. And we all know on this pod, Hyung's the bigger risk taker out of all of us here. So it makes sense that you would want to do it that way. And then it makes sense I would more go the other way. So it depends on your personality too. Okay, last quote. It's about the future of what breaking might look like. And almost ironically, when we're talking about monopolies in the hobby, this might be one area where there's legit competition. So here's a quote from one seller or one breaker in the article. He or she says, quote, "Hobby products are moving on TikTok, especially if you include Pokemon. If you're implying that it's really just a Fanatics Live, whatnot, eBay Live market, you add a TikTok shop soon, and you add a fifth well-capitalized, innovative competitor, now you've got a real fragmented market coming," end quote. So with increased competition, do you think this is where we'll see the most innovation in the hobby? Will breaking online look a lot different in a decade from now, just because of the, that's what competition seems to do. If it's a legit competition, they really push each other to innovating. What do you think? Like what the future might look like for breaking?
I won't even say 10 years. I'd say 1 year. It's going to look different, right? Like and that's why it's less about the brand that's actually carrying it out. It's about available technology. Like you said, TikTok's just a regular platform. But what is the asset of TikTok if people are using it as a buying platform? Does it have the fundamentals to do it? It becomes a convenience thing. Well, how many, Gen Z users on TikTok, right? Yeah. And that's the data. And is it growing? So it becomes more of, data and the availability of technology rather than a specific brand saying, we're going to win on this because XYZ. Like I said, even those companies, if there's no internet, whatnot doesn't exist. So it's like they're using the same technology that exists to basically create value within that ecosystem. So it's the exact same principle as that. So yeah.
And I would add too, like who's capturing, let's say, that Gen Z demographic? Because that Gen Z demographic is more likely or more comfortable to purchase things through social media streams rather than, Gen Xers.
Website.
Like, I don't know. Is a credit card protected?
That's so true.
Right?
It's true, because you would purchase things off a website, a trusted website. You wouldn't purchase something off a stream, for instance.
Yes, exactly.
But then we're not getting any younger, right? So it's like the next generation you got to cater to, right? So that's perfect point.
Yeah, and as the Gen Z and the Gen Alphas get older, it's a second nature to them, and the platforms that can cater to that demographic that all of a sudden have jobs now, have disposable income like we do, it's kind of adapting and evolving with where the growing segment in the hobby will be that have money to spend on cards essentially. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but that's something I don't think you can neglect And I think TikTok, in that sense, is well positioned to make a really big play. And, in a way, I think Walmart Live, that's another platform that tried to be in the breaking business. I don't think they're doing that well. But Walmart Live is almost catering to our age group. And it's like, why would I go there if there's other... I'm comfortable with eBay. I'm comfortable with just flipping singles the plain old way. It's funny now that this is the plain old way of doing things, is buying and selling on eBay, the regular platform, not on eBay Live. But how quickly things changed, right? So that's where we are. But yes, read the article. I'll include the note. I'll include the link of that article in the show notes below for you to just do a more in-depth dive if you want to. Okay, let's move on to our next segment. It's called Quiz Show. All right, it's a pop quiz today. So just 3 questions, really quick and simple. And the first one, it's got to be about Ohtani. The 2018 Topps Chrome Sapphire Red Rookie Auto, okay, numbered to 10, graded PSA 10 of Ohtani, sold for $60,000 in November 2021. Okay, so 5 years ago, $60K. You already know it's a great deal, right? Because it sold again recently this month for how much? And I'll give you multiple choice. Around $100K, $250K, $500K, or $1 million.
Wow. I think it's not a $1 million card yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yet.
Okay.
I think 100's way too cheap. 250, you said?
250 or 500K?
I would say true value is 250. Somebody paid 500.
Wow. Excellent reasoning. Excellent deduction. You are absolutely correct. $530,700.
Great sale, but at the end of the day, I think both parties won, but he might have gotten a deal in the long run.
I'm telling you. That's exactly what I said about the Wemby 1-of-1. You might have gotten a deal by still paying these extraordinary numbers for a piece of cardboard. But yes,
these are the only answers saying both buyer and seller did well.
Right. It's very rare, but very true. Okay, another card, the 2019 Bowman Chrome Draft. So his first Bowman auto of Corbin Carroll's Superfractor card just sold. Over or under 100K?
Corbin Carroll. I like Corbin Carroll.
Me too.
I've always thought he was unreal. Him and Pete Crow Armstrong actually very similar but different. But like the future of kind of like baseball superstars.
Yeah.
I think his market was hot when he came in. Obviously, it tanked, and it's Superfractor Auto.
Yep.
So
it's the card you want if you're a Corbin Carroll super fan,
right? Yeah. Man, I know it tanked. I would have said it went under over the past few years, but I know he's only like 24 or whatever age he is, but he's on high trajectory too.
He's playing well this year too. Still,
he's playing well, and that's what might have given it the bump over.
Okay,
you know what I mean. Over? So I think it was under, but I could see it going over. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it stayed under.
So what are you saying?
I'm going to say over, but
you're gonna say over. Okay.
Yeah, it could have reached that.
The correct answer. You're right. $123,220.
What was the previous sale?
That I don't know, but
okay.
It's I was saying to Jason, our mutual friend, and about this card or about Corbin Carroll in particular, how I just feel like he's super underrated, and he's one guy I wouldn't mind grabbing a couple of cards right now and just holding. But yes,
for sure,
Corbin Carroll, good for that. Buyer and seller. Again, win-win for the buyer and seller.
Win-win.
There. All right. Last question. Topps. They celebrated 75 years of Topps baseball. And they did so, if you remember, when we talked about Series 1, 2026 Series 1, by inserting a redemption card for a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card.
Very nice.
And since that time, a father-son pulled that card, and it was raw, or it was a redemption card, but it was raw, and now it's on golden. So you might know the answer to this if you've been paying attention to hobby news. If you haven't, this is a question for you. While it's on auction, what Golden did was grade it for them. Okay?
Okay.
And I think the auction ends in a couple weeks. I think. So the question is, what grade did that card receive?
Oh, wow. So it was a redemption, and then they actually got the card now?
Yes. So redemption, and Topps actually held the card because it was a redemption because they didn't want to damage it within the pack.
Yeah. Okay.
So they revealed it once the redemption card was redeemed, and
Really?
Golden graded it for them while it's on auction. Kind of like what they did with the Logan Paul's Pikachu card. Remember where they regraded it, reslabbed it? So
that's an interesting approach.
Yes.
Well
and
done.
I believe
on the
a clue. I think last bids was nearing six figures, 100,000.
So people know about it now.
Yes.
What grade it is.
The grade has been revealed.
Yeah. I don't know 52 Mantle prices. That's the problem. If it's over 100K, let me think. 955. Wow. So it would have to be under a 7, I would think. It has to be over, man, I would imagine like a 3, maybe. So I would say between 3. I mean, if they put like a PSA 6, that would be pretty crazy too. I'm going to say it's a PSA 4.
All right, I'll give you one more clue. The current bid, I just checked right now, is 150K.
150K.
183 with the buyer's premium.
I'm going to say PSA 4.
Good guess. It was graded a PSA 5.5.
Oh, that's pretty high.
Yep. And
so what's the value of a 5.5? Like, we wouldn't know, but like based on like, let's just say a PSA 9 at like 5 or 6 million, whatever it is, a 5.5.
I'm seeing one sold at Heritage Auction. Oh, this had an auto, so not a good comp. December 2024, last sale was 138K.
For a PSA 5.5?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so that might be a $250,000 card.
Could be, yeah. And 17 days left in the auction as of this recording, so.
Okay, so it might be more because there's more eyes on it too. You got to remember, it's a marketing thing more than anything, right? So it's going to be a record-breaking sale. It's going to be great for 52 Mantle because there's a lot of attention on it.
Yes.
And 5.5 is a really good grade on that card. So it's a monster.
I think people were really surprised when it got revealed. That was
I'm surprised. Yeah, I was gonna lean towards a PSA 3 or 2. Originally, I thought it was like a PSA 1.
No, that's a what a pull for that.
Yeah, crazy.
All right, great job. We'll end off with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. All right, Xiang, you got one for us?
Sure. We're gonna go. I'm looking at the Shohei market again. Not for myself personally. I'm just gonna bring out 2 interesting sales, 2 thought patterns, and I want to see which way you would go. So the 2 cards are 2018 Topps Chrome complete set. Okay, it's complete set refractor of Shohei Ohtani, PSA 10.
Okay.
So it recently sold on auction for $6,500. Okay. Yep. So I remember when this card was so cheap because it was not the original Topps Chrome.
Right.
But I love that card. I think it's a great image, especially like the rookie debut image, for instance, does really well. I think this card's way better in terms of it being a refractor. He has a nice swing. It's a hitting image. And all the above. So I think it's a great card. $6,500. That was a sale. At the same time, a 2018 Topps Chrome Prism refractor. Okay, I know you don't like prisms too much, but it is the card number 150. So white jersey, Topps Chrome. Yeah. So I would say his most desired Topps Chrome rookie card image, and the prism refractor in a PSA 10, sold for $6,000. What's the better buy in this situation, in this Ohtani market?
I don't know if this is a bias of mine, but when there's so many different cards available for a player, unless it is the flagship or it is the top 2 or 3 image card, naturally by hobby consensus, there's always like, oh yeah, that's the number 1 card for Ohtani, or like non-autograph. I don't think the prism refractor, like obviously it is for that Topps Chrome, but then the second layer is exactly what you're pointing out, the different refractors available out there. And so one bias is I don't like the prism refractor, so that's like the point off for that. But nowadays I'm more into like the niche, like and again, like it's kind of related to what I mentioned in the previous podcast, my super refractor strategy. Like if I think the art or the image is really nice and it's undervalued because not a lot of people know about it, at some point, if you believe in that player like Ohtani, he seems to be as a sure bet as you can get. I think that card will just continue to appreciate in value. So I didn't even know the complete set retail existed until you just mentioned it 20 seconds ago. So I'm like, it is a nice card. It is a nice card. I do like low pop. Yeah, less than 200. I think I just looked it up.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's a no-brainer. I'm just going to trust my gut on this one. Go with the complete set retail.
Interesting. And, something to mention, like the way I guess the hobby used to look at cards before was, you got your flagship and it's rightfully so. I think it will always be that way in terms of still, if there's a number 1 card, you're going to still want the white jersey over any other secondary set.
Yeah.
But if you take Ohtani's, all of his base cards, so you have the most amount is obviously paper. You have his white jersey, red jersey, and paper. So that's the base as bases you can get in the Topps lineup. Then you got Topps Chrome, which is a little bit more rare. You want something better, you move up to a Topps Chrome, right? Then you go into the refractors and stuff, colored parallels. And then you have your Topps paper image variations. Right?
Yeah.
This is where I see the complete set. It starts acting almost as more of an image variation, not a secondary set alternative. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you look at all Ohtani available cards, it becomes, I think, super undervalued in that sense, where it's like a SSP or a SP, type card, even though it's just a regular released, low printed complete set. Like complete set before in the hobby was complete set,
right?
That's like way down there, you know what I mean? I find that was hobby logic. And now it's like real market, real buy. I think that card's way better than the Prism 2 because of that reasoning, right? But the market might not agree. So is it the better investment? Because the Prism might be more liquid. If let's just say Ohtani wins a Cy Young and the Prism goes crazy just because you have more data available and buyers are emotional, whereas less sales on the complete set, where that cycle becomes a lot longer in terms of you'll see the profit a lot longer in terms of the time frame, right? So there's that argument. So I see both sides, but in this case with Ohtani, I'm bullish. So I'm not looking for a quick flip. I'm looking for good assets. The complete set is that card.
Yep. Excellent points. And again, as it often does with our pick ones, it depends on your timeline, how quick you want to flip it.
For sure.
And I agree with you 100%.
Liquidity,
For sure. Okay, thanks, Hyung. I'll end off with mine. It's Wemby. You know why I never bet in sports? Because I did a bet with a friend of mine who's from New York. The winner buys the other person a 6-pack. Just like something, I don't want to bet big. I'm like, and we bet before the finals, and I bet OKC or San Antonio, the Spurs. Whoever wins out of that will beat the Knicks, who at the time we made the bet, the Knicks were already in, right? And I thought he was an idiot for taking that bet. It's like, oh, I'll go with the Knicks. Hometown bias kind of thing. And here we are, as of this recording, 1 win away. The Knicks are going to win the championship. New York's going to be crazy if they pull it off. But anyway, that's why I never bet in sports. I just never win in these big bets. So
that's why you always bet the opposite of what you think.
Yes, I cover myself in that way. You know what I mean? But I'm going to talk about Wemby. His cards are still going off though, and I wonder if it's going to slow down if the Spurs don't win this year, and the offseason might be a buying opportunity. But on one side, you have the 2025 Topps Chrome, and there's a Skywrite signature, so it's an on-card auto. It's a base auto of this subset, Topps Chrome PSA 10, for about $5K.
What year was that?
2025-26, so it's licensed.
So it's a licensed. Okay.
Licensed auto, yes, right? But not as a rookie. But on the other side is his 2023 Silver Prism rookie card, number 136, the black curtain that we all know. PSA 10, also going for $5K. Which one would you rather have? Essentially,
they're both $5K.
Sorry?
They're both $5K?
Both $5K.
Do you have a picture of the auto?
Yes, I do.
That's going to be the factor for me.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it would be more of a question of licensed non-rookie auto or
no.
I
don't
so I feel
like the license unlicensed rule, they do apply, but there's an asterisk beside Wemby and Ohtani.
Okay, fair enough. There you go. And there are different parallels to this card too. I don't know if that would sway your decision one way or another. But this is a base.
Pop? What's the pop?
The pop is right there on the bottom right.
388. Damn, that's a lot. A lot more than I thought.
Like I said, it's a base, so it's not numbered, but yes, 388 is
500.
the pop.
500 is the total pop. So
Yeah.
I think long term, this card is a better buy. Short term, the Prism's the better buy. So it all, but for me, Wemby, knowing what Ohtani went through, I'm going with scarcity over liquidity. Because for me, like I said, I've seen Ohtani Ohtani's it's the Ohtani effect. There's a new rule called the Ohtani effect, and I find Wemby falls into that category. So I'm going to go more long term, although I think the silver will win out in liquidity. Like, it'll do better in the short run than the Wemby auto. The Wemby auto will be better in the long run, though. So I'm going to go Wemby auto.
Ooh, I feel like I'm flip flopping now because I am leaning.
See, that's it. Would you rather have a second year Ohtani first year licensed auto? Let's just say that wasn't even a thing, but let's just even use it in the basic standard, a 2019 Topps Chrome auto. Mm-hmm. Versus like a Topps Chrome pitching refractor, PSA 10.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you put it that way, it's definitely a lot easier. But, oh man, the X factor, okay? And this is what's getting me. Panini Prism, no longer really relevant anymore because they lost the license. So this is like the last, Wemby that year and the year after is kind of the last of the relics of the Prism.
How many silver Prisms are there though? Like 5,000?
5K, yeah.
Holy jeez.
It's all relative, right?
It's all relative to the market. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what we're seeing. Because Ohtani's would have been way lower, right? Like 2,000 or something.
Yeah. But if Wemby is like this generational player, plays a full career, that 5K seems low to me all of a sudden. And the Silver Prism, I'm back in. I think I'm back in Silver Prism.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you could go both ways, and it depends on your exit strategy, right?
But you know what? You helped me out. If I thought about the Ohtani that way, I would have definitely gone for the 2019 Topps Chrome auto. So I'm going to go with this Skywrite signatures 2025 Wemby. It's sweet. All right. Thanks again for all our listeners tuning into this episode. We'll have a brand new one for you on Friday. We'll talk to you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.